Hey, Kurt, another episode of PBT Extra. Unfortunate news hits the NBA. Denver Nuggets star Jamal Murray out with a torn ACL. What are your thoughts? How can Denver move forward?
First off, injuries suck, man. This is just a blow because Denver had become kind of a dark horse contender favorite. Like they looked when they got Aaron Gordon at the trade deadline. It's not just that he added some athleticism and he can space the floor as a shooter. It's all the pieces clicked suddenly, right? Like everything fit, everything moved into a spot that worked. He was playing pretty well with Michael Porter Jr. I love the way it fit together. And you're like, maybe there's a contender here. This is looking really good. And now their second best player is gone. And with all due respect to Morris and Campazzo, who are going to eat up a lot of those minutes, and it's not the same. It's the two-man game is still a two-man game because Jamal Murray could destroy you. And it just changes everything in the West this season to start with. It's kind of devastating, man. How do you feel?
No, I feel the same way. I mean, ACL, that's super unfortunate. So, my prayers and thoughts are out to Jamal Murray, hopefully for a speedy recovery. But yeah, I mean, he was averaging just over 21 points a game, a big part of that team. And now a lot of those points are going to have to be made up by somebody. And it looks like it's going to be most likely a scenario in my mind is probably Michael Porter Jr. He had 24 against the Warriors in the game in question that we're talking about. But yeah, it's unfortunate because this Denver team was really starting to hit its groove. I mean, they won 16 out of the last 21. Jokic, like we talked about before, is an MVP candidate. And then this happens. But yeah, so I'm excited to see how they move forward. But I think it's going to be basically on Michael Porter Jr.'s shoulders to kind of, help lift him up a little bit. And then obviously Aaron Gordon saying, look, we just got you. Welcome to the team. Welcome to Denver. Now we need you to help us win some games. So I think those two guys.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they asked Aaron Gordon to fit in a little bit and kind of be more of a role player and a team player. And now they're going to go back to a little bit more Orlando with him, right? Like, hey, you got to take on a little more now. I'll say this. The first time I met Murray, I met his father, who is a guy who drove him and pushed him and as a young man to be the best he can be. This is a guy with a great work ethic. He is going to come back from this. But the real problem is, you mentioned it, it's an ACL. That's 12 months maybe on the court, and he's maybe back at some point next season. But if you talk to anybody who's ever had that injury, it's more like 15, 18, 19 months before you trust it, right? Before you're the same athlete and you can make the same moves. And that hurts them next season. That makes their next season that much rougher. And if that's the case, then, at the end of next season, Aaron Gordon's a free agent. They're going to have to re-up Michael Porter Jr. They're going to have to make some really big decisions without ever getting to see what this team really can do, which is just, to me, it's devastating. It puts if everybody's asking where the pressure goes, to me, it goes to their front office because now they've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, and they've committed themselves to those two stars, to Jokic and Murray, over the past few years. And it's exciting to see what's going to happen moving forward because you're right. There are a lot of questions that the front office is going to have to figure out. In the same game, though, on a much lighter note, Steph Curry broke Wilt Chamberlains' record for the franchise scoring record for the Golden State Warriors. How amazing was that 53-point performance, Kurt?
It fits in with his season, though, doesn't it? He's just been phenomenal all year long. I missed watching him play last year. I love watching him come out and just light it up. And everybody knows he's going to have the ball in his hand. This isn't, Kevin Durant's not there anymore. Klay Thompson's out injured. It's the Steph Curry show. And what are you going to be able to do about it? Not much, man. It's unbelievable. And anytime you pass Wilt Chamberlain in basically anything, you're at the top of the list, man. That guy is just a plague all over the record books. And it's amazing. Anytime you're mentioned in that sentence, it's good news.
And another guy who came off of injury, people are like, is he going to be the same player? Undoubtedly, yes.
Yes.
Undoubtedly, Steph Curry is still Steph Curry. So yeah, that team is interesting because Steph is playing at such a high level, but they're sitting right at the edge of the play-in games.
Yeah.
And it's kind of confusing what the personality of this team is. We kept waiting. They'll figure it out. They haven't been able to figure it out, and now they're teetering their seasons right on the line going into playoffs. What do you think this team needs to do to get into the playoffs and try to salvage what's left?
It's not a matter of Curry. It's not even completely a matter of Draymond Green. It's really the role players. This is, I think, what's different about this team, even next year and it's the stuff they've got to figure out in the offseason from when they had Klay Thompson, when they get Klay back. When you think about the Warriors championship teams, even the one they won before Durant, it's all right. I can trust Sean Livingston with the ball to make smart decisions. I can certainly trust Andre Iguodala to make plays down the stretch. On and on, Harrison Barnes, you name it, whoever was on that roster, you could trust them. Andrew Wiggins? No, it's not like the same.
He doesn't earn your trust.
Yeah, he's not there every night the same way and the same consistency. We've talked about this. James Wiseman's now out for this season. Even when he comes back next season, he's still young. He's still learning. There's moments where you're blown away by him, and there's moments he's running around on defense like a chicken with his head cut off, just not sure where to be and what to do. I'm not sure how, he'll make leaps, but is it enough? They've got work to do in the offseason.
And Oubre, unrestricted free agent?
Yep. I'll say this, though. One interesting thing for them heading into the offseason, from the D'Angelo Russell trade, they have Minnesota's #1 pick, and Minnesota keeps it if it's top 3. If it's 4 or lower, the Warriors get Minnesota's pick, which could bring in somebody at 4, 5. Minnesota's obviously going to have a high draft pick. That becomes really interesting on lottery night.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny, Kurt, because they go to 5 straight. The Warriors go to 5 straight finals, win 3. Then Steph Curry gets the hand injury, and they end up getting a top 3 draft pick. They pick up Wiseman, and then this season doesn't look too good. But they still have. But you're talking about this maybe 4 or lower pick from Minnesota. I mean, how in the world, if they end up building the future, and Steph is still like 30, so he's in his early 30s. I think from my perspective, this season is going to be interesting because of Oubre's role, right? They got Oubre because Klay Thompson was out, and he hasn't been able to kind of help basically fill Klay Thompson's shoes because, those are some, like I said, 5 finals, right? So this season, I'm curious to see if Oubre will accept a role off the bench, kind of what Jordan Clarkson is doing for Utah. Moving forward, does he want to sign that kind of deal? Does he still want to be part of the Warriors? I think that's probably the biggest question mark for me is what happens there. And then the money wise, you have 4 guys on huge contracts: Curry, Wiggins, Draymond Green, and Thompson. How can you afford great role players when you're spending majority of your money on the stars? And fortunately, Lacob and his team, their ownership is committed to spending. Yeah. But it is interesting to see. Okay, this season we've seen the role players not step up as much as we'd like. How can do you spend more money? What do you do there?
You are a destination, right, though. You still have Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. You can get some guys maybe a little less, and they do have this advantage. Rick Welts, who just left as the president of basketball operations, the business side guy, or not the basketball operations, but president of the business side, set them up. That building is a cash cow when they can start to fill it again. That's a lot of money coming in. They draw in as much revenue or more revenue now than any other team. That helps pay those bills, but yeah, they've got some serious questions to answer about what this team is going to look like going down the line.
Another team that is playing at a level that I didn't know if we expected, right? The Warriors had an unexpected season. It's very challenging. But on the other side, the Phoenix Suns have had an unexpected season, but it's really going well for them. What are your thoughts on this Devin Booker-Chris Paul relationship?
It seems to be working. Look, this is, I think to me, and I'll ask you, is it Chris Paul's team or Devin Booker's team?
It's Chris Paul's team.
Yeah, it's Chris Paul's team. It will be Devin Booker's team, but it is Chris Paul's team today. And I think it works really well. Chris Paul is what they needed because Chris Paul is the best floor general of a generation, right? Everybody's going to be in the right place. The ball is going to get to the right guy in the right spot, in the shooting spot. Everything is going to be kind of perfect. And they've really thrived with that. DeAndre Ayton has thrived with that and found his role. Booker is working and can pick his spots to run the offense. I just like the way everything kind of sets up for them this regular season. They've been fantastic. And now the question becomes again, he's got Chris Paul, a $44 million player option, which is a fair amount of cash. And a lot of people expected him to pick it up, except what if Dallas or somebody with cash this summer, New York, comes and says, hey, we'll give you 3 years, $100 million, $110 million guaranteed. Would he take that more money but less per year? Would he leave Phoenix? Would Phoenix match? It's an interesting offseason question. But that said, Suns fans got to be enjoying this, man. This is the best run since they were, Nash and D'Antoni were there. Yeah, no,
it's a very interesting question because we saw in OKC, Chris Paul helped bring that organization from the doldrums into, a playoff race, which was remarkable. Yeah. And he left, right? He's like, best of luck to the organization. I'm going to go do. So obviously, it's more than just money. I think at this point, Chris Paul wants to be able, at least from what I'm looking at, right, is he wants a chance to take a team all the way. And it looks like this Devin Booker situation where you have young talent in Booker and Aiden. Mikal Bridges is a really good fit for them as well. Jay Crowder is getting valuable minutes. Like, everything about this Phoenix team, I'm very excited about. So I don't know why you would leave. If like, why would you leave? I would say Chris Paul, though, when I saw that trade and I said, okay, wow, when I saw Chris Paul going to Phoenix, I was thinking to myself, wow, that might be perfect because, we saw the Phoenix Suns almost get a taste of blood in the bubble, right, where Devin Booker just went off and they went undefeated in the bubble. And you could see this spark of something's different about this team. Oubre didn't go with them into the bubble. So it was kind of like how they performed. They exceeded all expectations, but they didn't have any veteran leadership. And then you get, like you said, one of the best floor generals that I've ever seen play the game come into the locker room and take them to the next level. And it's been, history since.
Yeah, and they head into the playoffs with that depth. I think the question about them going into playoffs is just a lack of experience, right? Because Booker's never been there, Ayton's never been there, Bridges has never been there. Outside of Crowder and CP3, this is not a team deep with playoff experience. So how are they going to handle it when they've got to face, look, it's the West, man. If they lined up 2-7 right now, they'd be getting Dallas in the first round and have fun dealing with Luka. So there's no easy outs in the first round. They're not striking fear in other teams because of that, the way that the Clippers or Lakers or some other teams do, just because despite them being at the top of the standings, they're not proven. But I think that's what's going to be fascinating about them in the playoffs is they can prove it. This is a really talented, deep team. And every time you question them, they win again.
Yeah, I think that's their greatest advantage, Kurt, is the fact that there's all these questions around them in this whole young, like they're too young in the playoffs. They've never been there before. Will they be able to succeed? They're going into this with no expectations. They're sitting at the top of the West with no expectations, which is, could you imagine being in a better place to be?
No, I think they're in a great spot. You know what they get to avoid too? They get to avoid the play-in game. They are not going to be part of the play-in game. And this week, Dallas, who at 7 would be part of the play-in tournament, they would have to win one of the two they'd face. Mark Cuban came out and ripped it. Luka Doncic says he doesn't understand it. Do you understand it? Do you understand why it exists?
Yes. I don't. Let me be a little humble there. No, I don't, but I think I do. Let me take a shot at it, Kurt. I think it's because, we saw in the bubble this idea of you want to be able to invite more teams into you can have an expanded playoff system, right? And in the NFL, you have like a wild card game, right? In the NBA, you don't really have anything like a wild card. And I think that what the idea is, okay, well, one, you could test different formats in the playoffs, and because who says that the best of 7 series is the best way to go about the playoffs generally? I think that's a fair question. So like you can test different formats, and then you could also bring in revenue to other teams who are right on the bubble, keep their fans interested and engaged. At the end of the day, I know it creates issues probably for the players, as we've seen. When do you rest stars? How do you play for positioning during the middle of the season? Are people watching games because Luka's sitting out, because he has to rest and Porzingis isn't playing? But at the end of the day, this is for the fans. This is a game for the fans. They're your number one customer, right? So if fans are more engaged because their team is 9 or 10 and they might get a chance to go to the playoffs, then I think it might be worth it.
Yeah. First off, I think the main reason it exists, it's let's be honest. It's given the TV broadcast networks one and done type games, right? So it's like games people are going to tune into that'll get good ratings. It draws a couple more nights of fans into the building. So it's partially that. But some of the other stuff Cuban complained about and you mentioned is exactly why it exists. It exists to keep fans engaged and not think about tanking. You don't want the league does not want the fans rooting for their team to lose. And Cuban was complaining we don't get to rest our stars down the stretch and it's going to not set things up for the playoffs. Those last couple of weeks of the season can be some pretty ugly games, man. It's not great basketball sometimes because everybody's resting their stars. Well, now necessarily you can't. This was the point when, by the way, Cuban voted for this. So I think it's doing exactly what it was supposed to. It's just that Cuban didn't think he'd be involved, did he?
I think at the end of the season, it's kind of like wintry mix, like in South Bend we had that where the snow wasn't white and pretty. It was kind of slushy. And it's like, well, it's not spring yet. It's still 30 degrees and slushy snow. That's kind of what the end of the season games are kind of like.
Yes.
It's like everyone's tired, getting ready for the playoffs. People are resting. It's not spring yet. It's. I don't think Dallas expected to be 7 at all. But that's a different story for a different time. But yeah, I'm with you, Kurt. I think that being able to get those TV contract deals are probably the paramount thing, and keep fans engaged. But like I said, I'm curious to see like how, if this is successful moving forward, how the playoff structure may or may not change. Because like I said, who says the best of 7 is the best way to go about the playoffs? Like, I think that's a fair question.
I'm with you on that. I missed the best of 5 in the first round. Anything, when you do a best of 7 series, this sounds kind of boring, but the best of 7 series, the best team wins every time, pretty much. If you invite, part of the beauty of the NFL playoffs, and certainly March Madness, which we all love, is that it's one and done. You invite randomness into the world, right? Like this, the 12 seed can upset. You can have UCLA can make it to the Final Four from the 11 seed. Like that kind of randomness is exciting for fans, exciting to watch. And the NBA, man, the best team wins every time because it's 7 games. And if LeBron James has an off night, he's not going to have 6 more. It's going to be good. So I think that I'm with you, man. These one and done must win games, shortening one or two series to 5 games or something. Anything that invites some randomness in, I'm for.
And at the end of the day, too, who goes to the national championship game in March Madness all the time? Like, how many times have we seen Duke and Kansas and Kentucky get there, right? So it's not like you're rigging the game to the point where it's all random. It's all going to be 9 or 10 seed play-in seeds. At the end of the day, you're still going to have your Lakers, you're still going to have the Clippers get there. But it's funny to me to kind of see, okay, well, yeah, number 1 seed did get upset. I don't even know the last time that number 1 seed got beat. I mean, I can think of time where the Spurs got beat by the Grizzlies, and that was the 8th seed. And that was a dark time in my life. But other than that, Kurt, I can't think of it.
Yeah, I was about to say that was the last one. I didn't want to bring it up, but it doesn't happen often, and it's usually injuries or the 8th seed shouldn't really be the 8th seed. They're better than that, and a combination of factors. It just doesn't happen in the NBA. And I'm, like I said, I think the play-in is going to be fun, and we'll see how it goes.